Good afternoon. My name is Jay Ramsanjal. I am from the Dynamics Hub. The Dynamics Hub is a user community. And what we do is we facilitate sessions like these in which we connect users with each other. We extract information on the one hand from users, on the other hand we share it with partners and with Microsoft, making sure that you as a user or customer get the most out of your Microsoft Dynamics investment. That's what I want to start with. And the next thing is what you learn in the Presenters 101 handbook is never thank the audience for being there. But as being a non-conformist, I will. I want to thank you for having the time to be here and attend the session, especially as it's the last day and the last hours of Convergence. And that is a great opportunity for you to interact with our panelists. We are going to talk about the role of the key users in your organization. What does it mean? And what does it mean to have the convergence of business and IT? What we're going to do in the next 55 minutes is having an interactive discussion. My last session I mentioned that I had a lot of coffee and I thought that it's already, the caffeine has left my system, but it hasn't. So if I'm running around, it's twofold. On the one hand, it's due to the caffeine, and on the other hand, is because I will run around to let you talk. It's an interactive session with the audience. Less people think, oh wow, should I leave or should I? No problem, no worries. First we'll start with the introduction of the panelists. We have put tremendous amount of effort in the preparation with these gentlemen who shared their time in their busy schedule. Before I go to the introduction, I want to share with you that the interactive part after the introduction is through your mobile device. So you will get an URL. We will start with a statement. And when you go to the URL, you are able to provide the answer that you feel applicable to the question or the statement. And by that means, I will ask the panelists for their opinion, and I will ask you guys also for yours. So by all means, let's make this an interactive session. Afterwards, if you have any questions on specific topics, it could be key user management, or it could be on the verge of business transformation or digital or product specific, we can help you as a user community. One of our colleagues will scan your badge and we will make sure that your questions are heard and that there's a follow-up. And on the other hand, we will share the end results of the session with you by mail. So, Elena. Elena, by the way, is our community manager, but also our, well, not somewhat of a PJ. The next slide is the introduction of Mr. Frank Klebers. Please tell us who you are and why you're here.
Okay. Hello, good afternoon. I'm Frank. I'm a CIO for Think Holding. Think Holding represents the Federation of Plastic Selling Companies amongst Europe. We run a lean business concept. We are running with AX 2012 R2 since 2 years now, and we're using AX as a business solution since 2001. So we're one of the early adopters of the promising solution. We're a company that does a complete business process within AX, and along the years that we work with AX, we have been working with key users inside our organization as well. So we've been doing that for quite some years and have quite some experience on what you can do, what you cannot do. So I hope I can share some interesting feedback with you during this session.
Thank you. Thank you, Frank. Stefan, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, good afternoon, Stefan Lucke. I'm the IT director for Bunzl Continental Europe. Bunzl is a company company that you don't know probably, but you've been using our products if you stayed in a hotel, for example, because we source and distribute things like, hotel amenities, I don't know, paper cups, toilet paper, cleaning products, healthcare products, etc. We're a global company, and in continental Europe we own about 30 companies and growing. And that's a characteristic of Bunzl, really, that we are very decentralized, and yet at the same time, as a central organization, we run a central IT platform. Our ERP backbone is Microsoft Dynamics AX, 2009 actually in our case. And again, we have multiple companies on the central platform. So one of the challenges for us certainly is managing this kind of diverse environment on a central platform. And obviously this is where the topic of key users plays an important role.
Thank you, Stefan. Phil Wood.
Good afternoon. Apologies for my croaky voice. There's plenty of others here with perfectly good voices this afternoon. So I'll try and save it to last the whole session. I'm the CIO, Group IT Director for a company called Rotork. We manufacture, sell and service industrial equipment, specifically pipeline flow control equipment. We use Microsoft Dynamics AX for the full life cycle of our business, and also importantly the service management side and running of our field service engineers. We've been doing that since 2010. And clearly the subject of key users is very, very important. They are people who are critical to the successful outcome of your project. They are people who contribute knowledge to the project stage, but also they are leaders around implementation and making the changes stick once the project has passed by a certain location. So we have about 60 locations that we are putting AX into. In each of those places we need people who are champions of the change, champions of the technology, and who can act as an interface between the change in the technology and the rest of the workers in that site. So very, very important subject. Great to share it with you this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Phil. Last but not least, Patrick.
My name is Patrick Gemelig. I'm the IT Director of Gaia, responsible for the business area solutions. Gaia is a business-to-business provider of engineering technology, predominantly aimed at the food industry, so producing machines that provide food in terms of producing, but also the hygiene protection thereof. We are spread all over the world, basically. What kind of technology are we using from Microsoft? AX. We started as an early adapter with AX3, now made a kernel on AX4, for which we've implemented over 60 companies worldwide, from Vancouver, Canada to Melbourne, from Moscow to Cape Town, all over the world. We provide 24/7 support with our own team on a single database and a single software instance. And of course, key users are vital to maintain that kernel and spread the news and roll it out to the other acquisitions that we're doing today.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Elena, let's move to the poll system. I'll give you the opportunity to enter the URL, pollev.com/dynamicshub. And in order to get to know the audience, it's good to know who do we have here in terms of customers and partners or Microsoft. And we do have partners in the audience, but I think there's something wrong with the Wi-Fi or the mobile phone. So no worries. Well, that's very quick. Panelists, AX is hot. In the last sessions, today again, oh wow, and CRM, yes. Then again, it's pretty much the same. So what we see is that the audience is pretty consistent by means of the majority of users that are present are AX and CRM. Elena, let's move to the next question. These questions are some baseline questions, not only for us, but also for you to know, well, you are gathered here as like-minded people who share the same topics and challenges as you have.
No one from Microsoft here.
And again, as we have looked at the last sessions that we have a majority of people who represent organizations who operate internationally. And also, with regard to the topic, that is something that we will talk about. What are the differences in having a key user challenges for an organization who operates locally and for an organization who is operating internationally? Patrick, I know that your company is present over several countries. What is your experience when you are looking at the role of the key user within your organization operating across cross-cultural countries?
Well, first of all, they have to be English literate because we don't know all the languages that they speak. A key user has to, let's say, not only be understanding English, writing English, reading English, because otherwise we're not able to communicate with each other in the same language. But of course, they have to be cultural sensitive. We are using teams for all over the world, and as everybody knows in this room, of course, there's some things are done and not done in different countries. And most important, you have to bring them together physically in the beginning. And of course, all the nice tools that we saw from Microsoft that can help you doing managing remote teams, we will as well. But first, we invest, let's say, in trusting them and educating them before they spread out over the world.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a very good point there, and that's what we believe as a user community as well. All these online platforms are, it's nice, it's good, but in essence, we are people. People like to interact and connect also on a personal level. So how many times, in my experience, haven't I seen projects fail because there was only engagement through online communication platforms? So what we believe as a community is that we facilitate both online and offline sessions. So I think that is a first takeaway, perhaps an open door, but a very important one. Stefan, I know that you operate also across countries. Apart from the feelings that and opinions that Patrick shared with us, do you have additions to what plays an important role in operating cross-country with key users?
Well, it's almost reiterating really that, while the cultural differences are there, but they also bring, a certain diversity to the project that can be enriching as well. I mean, so it is a challenge, obviously, but it is very important also locally to take into account, all the differences that there are. And, every country is different, so even if you come with a similar solution, the reception by the end users, for example, will be very different. And it's the key users then who actually point out, what these differences are and make us as the central organization aware of, how to deal with them. There may be certain sensitivities, for example, that exist in one country but not so much in the other country. And you just need to be aware of these. So the key users in that sense are also the antenna there into the local organization that can tell you, for example, how user adoption will be or what the challenges to that are. So, again, echoing, it's very important to leverage it and look at the differences, also is at least something that's enriching and that you need to be aware of, that you need to take into account as early as possible.
Thank you, Stefan.
Jay, I guess I've got a slightly different
yes.
Spin to these two guys. The strapline for my program is the same, everywhere. And I think, yes, we are sensitive to local custom and practice, but a key objective, a strategic objective of the program is to get common best practice into all of our locations. And we need the key users to make that translation between the global standard and how it's executed locally. But common practice, common best practice is really important. One of the things that we do every year for each of our key user groups, so we have 4 or 5 process areas, business areas, Each of those has key users from our implemented sites. We pull them together every year for a week, and we go through updates, changes, but we also listen to their feedback to the central project team to find out how it's going in those particular locations. So I think the same everywhere is really important. If we're putting the same system out there, we want the same business processes, the same practices, we want to use the same training material, and we want everybody to benefit from the success of that. I think also within the organisation, we have a lot of mobility. We have people who work across our business and also move from unit to unit. And I think there's a fantastic opportunity for our staff to become a key user and then go to another site and take on perhaps a bigger role or a bigger site, but also to make sure that practice is transferred between locations.
And thank you, Phil. And you are talking about a best practice, a blueprint, so to speak. What are the top 3 key elements that you need to incorporate in that best practice? Phil,
are you asking me?
Yes.
I think it has to stand up, it has to meet most people's needs most of the time. So I think the dialogue with the business around requirements and the ability to design and build a solution that when you put it in front of the business they say, yeah, that meets most of my needs, is definitely one. I think we have always a challenge of complexity, and that's probably number 2. The more you try and make a solution universally applicable, the more complex it inevitably becomes. And with complexity then becomes difficulty of use, difficulty of training, and difficulty of deployment. So those are certainly 2, and the third one probably is around control of evolution. If you're trying to put a best practice out there, it has to be out there for a certain amount of time to be tested before you then go and revise and change it. And I contrast all of those 3 things very much with, if you were just putting this solution into one site or into one plant, then you can be a lot more flexible. You can be a lot more customized to the practices of that plant. But inevitably, when you start to roll it out, you have constraints and conflicts with the way things are done specifically in every location, and that becomes a massive change management issue. So those are my 3 things.
Thank you very much, Philip. Elena? Dominic. This is my friend Dominic from MSX International. How many employees does your organization have?
6,000.
And what role does the key user play within your organization, and how do you manage to engage them within your project?
In a lot of different ways, not just one.
Oh. One second. You don't need to share all of them. Give me the top 2, please.
Okay. So we have groups of people who are specialists in each product or service that we deliver. So I guess you guys know what I do. We work for an automotive company, and our customers are major car companies. Because they outsource business processes to us, we have to strongly identify with our customer brands, and sometimes our employees feel like they're employees of our customers. So we have people who are technical experts and people who are customer experts. And within each market, each country, the projects are very different. But again, the common rule that you were saying, we have to deliver a common service. But each country has different ways of doing exactly the same thing. And it's just down to local nuances in how they work. So what we do is we have communities and groups, but not only internally, we also interface with our customers and people who have nothing to do with us too. For example, user groups. So we make sure that we promote people to go out to other companies so that we understand the context of the business world too. From industries that aren't even related to our own, just so we know where we are in the market, we know regarding technology where we sit, where we stand, how far forward we are compared with others.
Thank you, Phil, and I think it's a very good takeaway to see how do other companies operate, and it could be out of your own industry field. Elena? I'm very curious to know. We are talking about key users. And I once had a session about key users with a large bank. And when I asked how many key users are there, 0. Well, it's getting slightly better here. Obviously, Microsoft has created a new strategy for convergence, focusing more on the business side, on business level, on business management. But the feedback that I will give based on this session, and I do trust that everyone gives an honest answer. I think perhaps there are key users and they have the feeling, well, if I say I'm a key user, I will get all the difficult questions. No, definitely not. But this is interesting to see that we are talking about a group of people who in the majority is not represented when we talk about them. So I think a key takeaway in this one is let's not only talk about the key user, but let's talk with them. And perhaps for future events to come, we should engage the key users all together. Just like Dominic said, is send them out to other companies, let them talk to other key users. And perhaps, Elena, that's an opportunity for us from the user community to make sure that we bring both worlds together. Thank you. Let's go back to the...
Jay, can I say something?
Frank, please do so. Don't wait for me.
No, because
Take
I think
the stage if you want to.
I think we're missing a point, maybe. I think there could be people in the audience that are actually dealing with the topic and trying to find out how to get there. And then I can imagine that you choose a different option in the voting system. So I'm actually interested if that's the case. Are there people here who are thinking about implementing a key user structure or some kind of platform that aligns your business with your user organization? I mean, that would also give us a little bit more feedback on why you're here and what you expect to get out of this session.
Very good question, Frank. Thank you very much. That's why this is interactive. I think I've seen Helmut. Helmut, my friend. Could you point your views to the question of Phil? Why are you here?
Hello, my name is Helmut. I'm from Phoenix Mechanic Group, and we are actually in a rollout project for more than 20 countries to roll out NAV 2013. And doing this, we found out it would be a good idea to have a good key user structure in place, because we didn't have a key user structure until now, and we found that it was very helpful that we get people in each of our companies that have more than enough knowledge about what they are doing in their daily business, as well as they get knowledge about what they can do with NAV. So it keeps us to stay with standard and not, as we did a long time in the past, allow each company to do a lot of individual programming, which makes our life not really easy. So for us, it's here, my colleague sitting next to me and me, it is very interesting to learn how to set up a real good key user structure.
Thank you very much. I'm curious to know who have answered question or give the answer C. I have a question for you. Don't be afraid. Dominic. Very good one. Please elaborate.
The definition of it. A key user could mean many things, so I answered I don't know because I don't know what your definition of a key user is. I joined a little bit late.
A very good one.
Why don't we get some of the A's to answer the question for the C's?
That's a very good one. Phil, who said A? Don't be afraid. We're among acquaintances here. Then again, the panelist will do it for you. Then afterwards, perhaps, you will have some more inspiration to do so. Stefan, what's your definition?
It's the key linking point really between the business and IT. And those are the guys that really understand, the business and the core business processes and how we implement them on the IT solution. So they help us define, basically the solution that we implement on IT in order to support the business process. But that's only the beginning of the journey, because it's then about the whole life cycle and maintaining it, ultimately even supporting it. They are the key link pins really between business and IT.
Thank you, Stefan. Bianca, I haven't asked you a question yet, but I know that you operate on the domain of business and IT and have a lot to do with the key user. So I'm very curious to hear what your definition is. This is Bianca, and Bianca is from the Terberg Group in the Netherlands. Please share your opinion with us.
Well, in our case, the key user is the process owner. Mostly it is the head of the departments within our company, and well, they are able to make decisions to go forward or backward. So.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think the caffeine is kicking in, so I'm moving my pace right now. Hi, Emilia. Which company do you represent, and what is your definition of a key user?
I represent Smartboard Group from Ireland. Today we are trying to implement AX, and I'm in the first one, 12%. A key user of supply chains team. The idea is what they say is a key user is mainly a join between the business and the technology. But sometimes what happens with people who sell the technology, they can't realize who is the perfect key user. Sometimes they are trying to find someone who knows the business, who knows the way of work, but sometimes the business or the company, doesn't know their process. Sometimes they need to build the process from the beginning. So it's a long way from nothing to the new systems.
Thank you, Emilia. So it's actually very adaptive. It's also context-based. And I think I'm going to ask more questions to the panelists, because I see a lot of people leaving. Perhaps they're afraid. I will come to the mic. Elena? You can answer you give your answers free format. And this is a tag cloud. So based on what answers you give, we'll have an overview of the answers that are most common. Frank, name as many skills a good key user should have as possible. And mainly your organization, you have a multitude of countries you represent. And also that's the fact that you have a very large account on your air miles. So I can imagine that you have your own ideas of the skills that a good key user should have internationally as well.
Well, I'm going to try to say something useful about this. Well, it is kind of depending on which situation you're in. We are an organization, and I think the lady that just spoke before, I think she made the same point. Sometimes you're in a situation that you don't know which people to point out or to make a key user, or when do you make somebody a key user, or what is a good key user. We also have situations in certain countries where we don't have key users at all, but it's a policy in our organization to, even when you don't have them, to at least start creating them. So it won't benefit you right now at this moment, but it will start you benefiting in a certain amount of time. And then it's back to a few skills. I mean, we don't necessarily go for the people that work with the system for the most years because they are working for the company like 30 years, then they are a good key user. No. The key user is not determined on the amount of years that you work with a system or the amount of years you work in a company. It has to be somebody that is interested in the process and is able to pick up things regarding the process, has skills to teach other people and interact with other people. So if you're if you're somebody that communicates a little bit easier, picks up things, you have didactic skills, then I think that's more important than somebody who works for the company and knows the process. Well, maybe he knows the process the wrong way, because many of these projects are about changing your organization and changing the process. And if you don't have people that are able to adapt to that and make those changes, it becomes difficult. Still, having key users is more important than having none. So sometimes you just have to go for the situation where you can't make the best pick, and you just have to start educating the users, the key users inside your organization, and build upon that for the future. Because
thank you, Frank. We made an agreement, Frank, that you know, Frank likes to talk as much as I do, but he doesn't mind. Patrick, on the screen we see that knowledge, as Frank ended with in his answer, is one of the most important things. How do you make sure that knowledge is secured within your organization with the key user? And is it your role, or is it someone else's role within the organization to make sure that the key user has knowledge?
Well, it's actually, the answer can be both ways. For us, a key user is a business person that has primarily the business knowledge and is able to align it with IT so we can provide the right solution. Besides many of those skills I see here on the screen on my right side for you behind me, we also clipped it, but how do you, let's say, build that knowledge? Of course, the business knowledge is coming from the business itself, but how do we bring IT and business together, and how do we train the key user? We have a group of IT consultants, business consultants basically, that train them. We also use, let's say, external companies, of course, for us to adapt knowledge of new products, of new Microsoft products. And then we have the key training concept where the key user trains in the end, hopefully in the local language of the end user again. So it's a whole chain of people trying to constantly educate them, bring the knowledge up to speed, and share knowledge throughout our community.
Thank you, Patrick. Alexander. Alexander traveled from Germany. And I'm not sure the new organization you work for, so please tell us the organization you work for and which answer you gave and why.
I'm working for an e-commerce company, and also we are providing IT support to our departments. And for us it's very essential to have key users in place which are capable to adapt the processes, to be who are promoters actually of the process, to be, as you mentioned, change is an important thing, to be understood by all the users, and the key users are the link between our IT department, the link between the business requirements and the solution that actually takes place, and the change that is necessary that the process will be implemented.
Thank you very much. What I see is, I see words like ambassador, advocate, evangelist. So it's someone who has a specific role within an organization who can promote the system as well, making sure that adoption is secured. Phil, how does this resonate within your organization? Do you truly think that a good key user should be an ambassador, and why? Or why not?
I think that's a fantastic picture, and I can see so many people taking photographs of it. I think if I was to take a picture of that and go into my sites and put it on the notice board and say, if you think you are one of these, let me know. I really wonder who would apply. It's a massive expectation to have somebody or some people in your organisation who say, yep, I'm all of those things. But you can see how broad the role is. You can see what the demands are upon that role. And I think it's a fantastic opportunity for people, but you're right, there are some key things. They have to get the vision, but not necessarily set the vision. I think they need to be, there's one line in there about testing. You know, people have to be thorough and rigorous and detailed and completion focused. So the spectrum of expectation on these people is huge. Yes, they have to be advocates. Yes, they have to be ambassadors. So they need to be, I think there's extrovert on there. They have to be able to train others. They have to be able to monitor and supervise the work of others, and if necessary, correct the work of others. So they are leadership roles, and I see that on the slide as well. So it's a massive ask of people. I think when I have been rolling out systems, we have started with the key functional heads, the managers in the organisation, and expected them to be the key users. I think most of the time we don't achieve that. Possibly in the finance area, because the heads of the function, they do know how to use systems, they are focused on detail, they do want to get it right, and they do have the disciplines around making people work to rules and work to timescales. But in virtually every other area where I have implemented systems, the key users have come from within the organisation. We found it difficult to spot them at the beginning, but they have exhibited all of these sorts of behaviours, but only through the opportunity of the implementation of the ERP system.
Thank you, Phil. So what we see here is it's actually an epiphany, because we are looking for a key user, a single person who fulfills all these skills and qualities. But Mr. Luca, do you see this as one specific person, or is it something different? And are we looking for the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and it totally is not there?
Well, that's a good question. Well, it is there, actually, right? And I mean, we do have it, these people are there. It's certainly about, let's say, developing them also.
But by the way, before you continue, you guys know that the next showcase will be at Bunzel Continental in Amsterdam. We will visit your key user organization. Please continue.
All right, very good. You're welcome. No, so I mean, you don't necessarily find these people and they're ready for their role and they've done it for 10 years. Obviously not. I mean, so this is a role that you need to grow in. But nevertheless, well, I was itching here to point out one thing. I think actually we're a little bit different in that we are less rolling out, but we are really, let's say, implementing at every company that we move to. And that means we actually take into account really also what are the local differences in how they run their local business. And so for us, actually, in terms of the role of the key user, it is key, actually, and the absolute most important, the most important trait that these people have to bring to the table is they have to be strategic thinkers who can really ultimately help us determine the future and determine the future of, how we actually implement the IT solution at their local business. And that is something that is, of course, the more important, the more you actually take these regional differences into account, or local differences. But so for me, looking at this whole range of properties or of qualities that I would like to find in a key user, the absolute key requirement for me would be have somebody who is, detailed enough to really understand local processes and to really know how these guys are working, but at the same time be strategic enough to really understand what it means, what are the core things that we absolutely have to take into account in an IT implementation, and what are the things that we maybe can just simply also let go, and we then accept, a standard process that comes from the headquarter. Mm-hmm. That may be different depending on how you run your implementation here, but for us, that's certainly a key quality.
Thank you, Stefan. This is very impressive, actually, as Phil stated, because this is your input, and it's diverse. So I want to make a promise, and my staff already thinks, now we have to do all the work. Yes, but we are going to do something. What we are going to do, and I will do it with a team in a time frame of 3 months, we will analyze this. We will talk to business consultants. We also want to talk to you, so please leave your contact details if you are interested in the following. I think, based on this, what we have here, we can create a framework. We can create a quadrant, and we can extract personas. Because I think, based on specific dimensions, we can give you insights on if your organization is positioned on these metrics, you will need persona A or B or C. I think that can be done. So I will have a slight clause there. But Rishma is our assistant who makes sure that everything we promise, it gets there. Once again, please leave your contact details. Rishma, can you please raise your hand? Rishma has the scanner. And if you want to be part of this, she will scan your badge. And we will make sure that we do a follow-up. I think this is amazing, Phil. Then again, we have to move on. We can talk hours about this one. Please, let's have the next. Being a key user is a permanent role in the organization and not only for the duration of an implementation project. We had a lot of discussions for this statement because normally, and the experience that I have with talking to customers, you're looking for a key user when you're implementing a project or almost ending a project. I know myself 10 years ago, I was so ambitious and focused on, as a CIO, on implementing the technology that it was true but that was my own, stupidity. I engaged with the users 1 month before delivery. So they actually said, Jay, this is really like in Dutch we have a saying, mustard na de maaltijd, means you will have the sauce after you have eat your pasta, so to speak. A terrible metaphor, but I hope that you know what I mean. We do have a project manager in the audience, Wilbert. I'm going to ask you a question, what you feel about this statement and how you, as a partner, I know you're from HSO and you help companies implement, how do you deal with this and what is your vision on this statement? Wilbert.
Yes, no, I think this is true. So I think it's a permanent role. I do think we still have a kind of a definition problem because I see, let's explain it different. For me, a key user is the man on the ground or woman on the ground. Yeah? So if we talk international projects, then we have the key users in the sites. And these key users, they will stay key user permanently. However, what you will see is that the amount of work, what they will have as a key user next to their, let's say, daily work, will be less going forward because everyone will get used to the system and used working in the system. So that's my view on this.
Thank you, Wilbert. What I'm interested in, panelists, is Wilbert says, well, after the implementation, the key user stays in the project. But is that always true? Or isn't it that in most cases, when we are implementing the project, we are looking who could be the best key user, we will grab them, and it's something that they do, and that's another statement we have, apart from their already day job that they have. So how much focus can a key user really have on the tasks as a key user? Frank.
It's kind of classical. Always when you do these projects, you're getting into these matrix constructions where you try to claim people which are actually also supposed to do a day job or actually create a profit that you're trying to get in your organization. And I think with the key users, it's basically the same. You easily touch the subject where people are talking about, yeah, but what does that mean for my position? And do I get extra money for it? And then you get the complexity into these kinds of things. I think you should try to stay out of those things. You have to start first and see if it can add value into your organization, because creating too much complexity in a structure around key users, I think in the end is making it more difficult, and it does not help you to get things started.
Thank you, Frank. I'm very interested in the person who said B. I'm interested in your answer. Sir, please state who you are and why you think that it's no. Please enlighten us.
My name is Firas Saragam. I'm IT manager for Messiah Holding. We're a real estate developer with projects across Arabian Gulf as well as in Turkey. Within the past year and a half that I've been with the company, we've had two major projects. One of them was a CRM rollout. Now we're in the process of rolling out an AX implementation. I think it's contextual because, as somebody hinted at, usually we pick out some users for that specific project. So in our CRM, our key users were very different, obviously, from an AX implementation. We also, going back to the previous list of words, we found out that we put too much responsibility on a single person, especially for a small organization like ourselves, about 150 users or staff. So putting all that load on one person, literally, we had a person almost quit their job because they just couldn't handle all that responsibility on top of their own. So we learned from that lesson, and going back into the AX project, we distributed some of those. So we tried to form more of a team of key users. So I think it's too dynamic to be able to say, yes, you have a key user. It depends what is the project you're doing for.
Thank you very much, Firas. Phil, what do you think?
I think a few things. The lady at the front here said that, and I think we were still talking about the definition of a key user. The lady here said that the key user and the process owner roles were combined in their particular context. In our organisation, the process owner, so the author of the process, the guy with the vision, the guy who is laying out the change for the organisation, is separate from the key user. And I very much see the key users being in the user base. They are key, and I have key users for my legacy systems, which have been around for 20 or 30 years. And across the business, there are key users for those applications as well. And they, in a globally distributed business, they represent the users in that particular location. And I know centrally when issues and help desk calls come in from the key users, you know that they are the experts in that particular part of the business. They wouldn't be calling if it wasn't urgent. They wouldn't be calling if it wasn't important. And they wouldn't be calling because they'd forgotten how to do something or they'd made a mistake or any of the normal things. Because also in defining a key user, you've got to say, well, who are the users who aren't key then? And I think, you know, our businesses are full of people who use systems every day, and they do make mistakes. They do forget how to do things. They haven't been trained. They do stupid things. And I think our key users must set themselves apart from those. And certainly in my business context, we use the key users as the go-to person for all of the other users on that site because of the language and the time zone and context and everything else. Mm-hmm. So yes, we're still talking about the definition of these people.
Yes.
And so in my organisation, they are separate from process owners and they are separate from the other users. Mm-hmm. I think they are a permanent role because if we go to the previous slide, with all of those capabilities and competencies on them, it takes time to build those. And I think I would say that for a system that you're going to spend millions on developing and implementing and you want to last for dozens of years, you need all of those things to be going on all of the time. So somebody needs to take responsibility for all of those things. And I see it as a stepping stone for somebody. So they emerge from the organisation, possibly during the project stage. They develop those skills because there's an environment in which they can do it. But there's going to come a point in time where they move on and they need to hand those things on to other people.
I need to cut you off. It's very important what you're stating. And I want to ask Elena, when we send out the interview with the questions, let's ask the people also what their definition is of a key user, and we will process that. We have a couple of statements I want to share with you guys, so let's move on. Being a key user is a professional role in the organization and should be treated as such. Actually, it's in the same line as the statements we had before. And C, who wants to share the challenges of telling it to their boss? We can help you. No one? C. Okay. It's okay. So this one is By the way, when we have the framework, it will be easier to tell it to your boss. I think we can skip this one. The majority says yes, it is true. IT is possible to successfully run an IT-driven change management project without key user involvement. Or is it possible? I'm sorry. Firas, is it you? A? Who is A?
I mentioned A, just to trigger discussion. And I tell you why, because we have an example in our company more than 10 years ago where a company also wanted to implement Exapta, and they said, you know, we don't need key users, we're too busy, we'll hire externals to do the job. And yes, the project was successful until the moment of go live, where all the knowledge base went out of the company and they had troubles even, let's say, invoicing and the very primary things. So the project as such can be a success, but after go live it's a disaster.
Exactly, and it depends on the context and what your definition is. In our case, you want to sustain the durability of your project and keep it a success. Thank you very much.
Jay, can I say something?
Yes,
I mean,
Frank.
I'll keep it short. It also depends on your budget. I mean, if you're doing it without a key user, you probably do it with a consultancy organization. The risk there is that you don't keep the knowledge in your organization. And we really see that the knowledge of a key user is a valuable asset for the organization. So you build upon that. And we always tell to our organization, we already know the answer. We want you to know. We want you to be able to give the answers to the users and support the users. I said in the introduction, we are a lean organization, and that means that I run a very small IT department. And the only way to be able to do that is when you have a strong group of key users inside the organization where you work with. So we don't interact with users, we only interact with the key users, and the key users only interact with us. So there's also a cost-related element.
Thank you, Frank. Stefan, before you proceed, Elena, let's also keep in mind the definitions between the key user itself and the user. I think that's also important to define.
Now, but all I wanted to add is I think it completely depends on the project. So, I mean, can I install, a server successfully without key users? Sure, I can. But as soon as it touches business processes, it cannot be done without a key user. And, for us, actually, it is a prerequisite to even start such a project. We will not start the project if we do not have the key users identified. These key users can be people, who grow then into that role and who we develop into that role. But we have to have them clearly defined, otherwise we're not going to do it, and I think it's not going to be successful.
Thank you, Stefan, and I think, Emilia, you will agree with the answer of Stefan, right? Elena, we have 2 statements left, also with regard to the time. Without top-level management support and mandate, a key user concept is a waste of time and money. In other words, we need top-level management support in order to be successful. Phil.
I think some of this relates back to the earlier question, which was about do we pay them for it? I think and the answer which was please tell my boss. I think if your boss doesn't understand how important you are as a key user, then he's not going to give you any more money for it. And clearly I think it's really important, it's really valuable, and I don't think without top-level management support for those people who are going to be, in the end, the champions of the way they run their business, the people who make sure their business works properly, make sure that they get the invoices out, the reports out, or the goods out of the door on time. So the management of the company, I think, are in quite a tough place because they used to rely on their functional heads to do that.
Thank you, Phil. We have a last statement. I want to make a remark. What I also think, and then I'll... Yes, please. But one sec. What I think that could be done is, in our last session we had Microsoft executives as well, and they couldn't make it in this session. But what Microsoft, one of the statements was that the Microsoft marketing strategy is driving IT. In some cases, top-level management is getting very passionate about certain technology. And in that regard, I would say to Microsoft, if you are able to spend millions of dollars and euros in your marketing campaign, make sure that you put the role of the key user at a higher extent. Also market on that one, because it's not only about the technology. So make sure that the bosses also know the importance of key user management. Please, what's your question and who are you?
My name is Celine. I work for Nespresso coffee distributor. We are a distributor in Spain, but now we're opening in other countries in Africa and North Africa. We just wanted to comment that you don't need top-level management. You need middle management. You need the people who manage these key users to agree. Because very often, top management, they'll say anything, but they really don't have a clue what they're talking about. The results come from the managers of the key users. They're the ones that need to accept the fact that they will spend some time doing this job on top of the job that they're expecting from them. So, I come from an NGO before this, and we didn't have money, and we didn't have top-level management, but we did manage it because the managers of the users did agree to the project.
Thank you, Celine. Please make sure that we keep in touch, because that's very valuable information. But there's this gentleman first. Sorry, Frank.
I work for oil and gas industry. Well, we are empowering users. We're moving things from IT to the business. I want to know the trend in the next 5-10 years. Will the model of the IT service will be changed? Is it going to be with the business? Is it going to be with IT? It seems to be there is a change in the model since we have new technology, new BIs, new power apps, and so on. I just want to know what's your input into this trend of the new, in the 5-10 years.
Who wants to respond?
This is.
Oh man, they are fighting now. We're running out of time, and now they're on fire.
No, but this is a session by itself, I think. So I think what we should do is take this on our list for next year, and I really hope that you will be there then, because I think this is a very interesting discussion, because this is about the separation of traditional IT versus IT management in the future. And organizations are switching in that area. The more commoditized part of your IT is going to change compared to the role that a CIO has in the organization. Is far more functional and driven together with the organization, business process, and stuff like that. But I could talk about this
I know, Frank.
For a longer time. Let's do it next year.
And sir, please leave your information. We will get in touch. We have the last statement, and that is, again, a cloud. So we're very eager to learn how you feel about the advantages of engaging your key users. It's a difficult question, apparently. Oh, wow. In Dutch as well, I see acceptance. Stefan. Well, let me ask the question first. Who mentioned acceptance? What's the definition of acceptance? What do you mean? Sir.
I'm Michael, working for a German sports and fashion retailer. We recently did an AX project, and we had key users in the project which designed the solution with us, and they are coming from the base of their colleagues, and so we have a big acceptance for the resulting system in the end.
Thank you very much. Stefan, can you comment on that one?
Well, I would translate acceptance into adoption, into really taking the solution on board, working with it, getting the most value out of it. And yes, I think that's a key benefit that key users contribute.
Mm-hmm. Patrick, can you comment on the keywords that you see on the screen, the input that we have now.
I didn't see innovation yet, but I think also if we talk about a sustainable role, that the key user stays on board for a longer time. They're the first line of defense in supporting the system, in ensuring adaptation, but also making sure that they receive comments from their end users and also feedback to the IT organization, what can we improve? So they're also the first people that are innovators.
Thank you, Patrick. Sir.
Thank you. I hope you've just got enough time for one last question. I hear a lot of what you said, and it sounds fantastic. You know, we need to bring the key users into our story of rolling out new applications. But I think sometimes the reality isn't quite as rosy as that. And I'm sure many people have also experienced this. Top management, they say, we'd like to implement the system. I had an example in my company. I work for an insurance company, a CRM system. And the users aren't always so adopting of this change. So could you talk a little bit about the challenges of actually finding the key users, and when you find them, actually bringing them up to this evangelist kind of role? Because that's something we're struggling with a little bit. None of the users in some of the areas, the users just don't want the system. So, you know, how can we maybe overcome some of these challenges and actually find a key user that will help us overcome this implementation challenge?
Thank you. What we will do, it's just like the episode of a very exciting television show. What we will do is that specific question we will answer and discuss offline and provide it then by email or through our platform. Because it's not something we can state in a couple of words. And you know these gentlemen by now, we can talk for hours. In any case, thank you so much for having the interaction with us. And as you can see, it's also adaptive for us, because by the feedback and the questions that we get, we now can act upon, and we will. So please leave your information behind, and we will follow up on behalf of the EMEA community. That's my final remark. Please a cheer for our panelists, and thank you very much.